Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio.
Sorry,
I'm your
sorry. I was just saying.
We have a lag here today.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying she did mention that you'd been in touch with her, and I'm really happy to hear that. That's great news.
Hmm.
And you both are very driven people, so it's a good little combination, I think.
It is a wonderful combination. So I'm happy you connected us.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm really. I was quite surprised when Raven said that you were working together, and um, I noticed when I was talking to you, you sort of care about your writers and your seem to have your finger on the pulse, and she's very similar like that. She just seems to take an extra interest in the writers and where they're going and what they want. And I had a manager beforehand, and and he was terrible compared to Raven, So I sort of tasted some bad management and then got a taste of good management and thought, oh, I got very lucky. But I am so glad that you're working together.
Yes. Thank you again for connecting us. You are the connector.
No problem.
So if you are ready,
No problem at all. I am sorry about interrupting you.
no worries. Welcome to Dove and Dragon Radio. I'm your host, M.L.Ruscsak. I'm back with one of my favorite authors, Robert Lee Johnston. Welcome.
Hello, Melissa. G'day. How you doing?
Good. It's always fun having you on the show. Now we
Thank you for
have,
having me back. I love it.
well, we don't have the ducks or the geese quacking this time yet.
Not yet. They'll probably hear me talking and come up and interrupt when they can, though.
Of course they will.
I'm trying to
But
give you a little. I'm trying to give
you
you a
know
little bit of.
what? It's a very beautiful background and it fits perfectly with
Excellent.
your book because this is where it takes place, is in your backyard, basically.
Just that's right. Cairns, the city where the Great Barrier Reef is just down the road from me. So I use that as the setting in this book. And so yeah, there's a lot of green, a lot of trees, a lot of water around, and of course the Great Barrier Reef. That's the big sort of attraction in there.
Oh, yes, we love our Great Barrier Reef because that protects all the nature that needs to be protected in that area.
Yeah, that's right. And it sort of puts a new light on it because the main character Lucifer Luce he's never seen Australia before or this sort of stuff, and he comes to Earth once every 100 years. It's his long service leave,
Mhm.
and he gets a year off every 100 years, and even though I'm talking about religious characters in the book, it's not at all religious. So I've put a new spin on religion, and it's basically a business. And so he's just a tired man who's got a really bad job, who hates his job. Um, and everyone can pretty much relate to a job they hate and having to get up into a morning and doing a job they despise. So I had quite a lot of fun with that. And of course, he's never seen the Great Barrier Reef before, or the 21st century. Um,
Right? You have the cell phones, you have the computers, you have what has changed in the last 100 years. I mean, if you look at
yeah,
it as a snapshot, everything's changed.
everything. And I really thought that was quite a great idea when I was coming up with the thought of the book, because particularly in the last hundred, more than any decade, we've mowed it ahead so fast, and it has its positives. We definitely have. Technology helping us out, and we have all the mod cons, but there's also, if we were to take a snap glimpse at us now, we're also pretty nasty to the planet. We don't really take care of it well. The reef is 60% dead. Like
Mhm.
I've lived here all my life nearly, and where I used to swim as a child, I have to walk 4 kilometers out to find coral, where once I used to just be paddling around in coral as a child. And people talk about the bleaching and it dying, but they seem to put a positive spin on it that we're fixing it somehow, and it's really not the truth. So even though the book is a comedy, it shines a light on three or four pretty serious subjects, and with those fresh eyes of his, it sort of puts a light on the subjects without them being rammed down our throats or sort of slapped in the face too much about it.
Right. It's a perfect blend of, hey, this is reality versus, hey, we're going to slap it across your face to make you realize this reality.
Yeah, that's right. And I had a wonderful stroke of luck. My first book is quite confronting, and my editor had a bit of a hard time dealing with that. And then I sent him my second book, and he wrote me an email saying, "Do you know that I'm an ex-minister?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What are you doing to religion? I really love it." And because I've never been to church, and I'm not at all churchy. I had lots of questions as far as, what roles did archangels play and these sorts of things, and I wasn't sure if they were male or female. And he's a bit of a disillusioned ex-minister, I should add.
Mhm.
And so I rang him one day. I said, these archangels, are they male? Are they female? He said, no one knows, and everyone just made it up. So no matter what you write, it's not going to be any different to what was made up
Right.
in the
There,
start.
no one really knows. It's all made up anyways. And I have a degree in
Yeah,
religious studies, so I know it's all made up because regardless of what religion you're studying, it's all different. So whatever.
yeah. And as a writer, that's a wonderful platform to work from,
Mhm.
where there's so much belief in something we haven't seen yet. So there's a fair bit of comedy to be had there if you can pick the right sort of scenarios and places. Um, and one thing I've done with him is I've made him no better than any other human. No woman or no man is better than him, and he's exactly like us. And uh, in fact, in one of the parts of the book, he watches some B grade movies and he sees himself represented terribly. And it's the cliche Lucifer we know, he's
Mhm.
handsome and he comes back to Earth and he's the most rugged, beautiful man you've ever seen. And sex starved women throw themselves at him and he heals instantly and all these ridiculous powers. Well, because it's a long service holiday and he's got God to deal with, and God loves his 10 commandments. Well, he has 10 commandments to follow while he's on earth too. And he can't let anyone know who he is, and he has no choice over his gender. And that opens up quite a few doors. And God in the book, we just have the premise that it's real, and God has a sense of humor that can't be matched by any of us. So every time poor old Lucifer comes back for the last 6,000 years, God's given him a limp and a bung eye and pregnant and all sorts of horrible situations. And over 6,000 years, God's sort of just given him a real little taste of something very, very different, and given him a taste of far north Queensland and the tropics and clean living and clean food. And whereas he's hated Earth and never really liked coming back and found anything endearing, um, this time he sees a lot of beauty here, and life is a lot more about living rather than just existing. And he kind of likes that.
See, that's a great message. Just that one little section. It's about living, not just existing.
Yeah, that's right. And we've all been guilty of it, haven't we?
Mhm.
It's a very easy trap to fall into, and I suspect maybe have you ever sort of found yourself in that situation?
I did. And then I woke up one day, was in the hospital after the stroke. I said, oh no, I can't just exist anymore.
And unfortunately, it's the big kick in the pants that does it.
Mhm.
I'm very grateful for some bad things that happened to me in my life, because it really woke me up quite quickly to the fact that you got to enjoy this ride as long as you can, and there's always going to be bad things that happen, but try and keep everything moving forward and positive. And if someone like Lucifer, who is renowned for hating mankind, hating man, if he can find a little bit of beauty in the 21st century and overlook people's sexual orientation, the way they look, the way they dress, then I think maybe all of us can take a little sort of leaf out of his book, if you like.
Exactly. It's not just about what other people are doing. You have to focus on yourself and find the
Yep.
beauty around you.
That's exactly right. And look, even people here, there's a lot of locals, and perhaps your country is guilty of this as well. If you live somewhere beautiful, you're the last person to go bushwalking, to enjoy it, to go to the local swimming holes. To the locals are the worst. You know, the locals here can go walk around with their heads down and not see anything. And I think I was guilty of that for a long time because I spent a lot of my childhood here. I had to get away because I disliked the area. It was just I had to move forward. Um, but when I came back, I realised that I wasn't taking notice of all the beauty. It actually took me to miss the place to actually recognise how wonderful it is here. And like life lessons, I think sometimes we have to go through the worst of times to get the best out of our lives. It's a contradiction in itself and an oxymoron almost. But a lot of my friends that have had life changing experiences, it's always come after something very. A Bigfoot has kicked them right in the bum, basically.
Exactly. You don't think about what you're doing until life says, oh no, you have to change what you're doing. There's no ifs, ands,
Yeah.
or buts anymore. We're going to make you change.
And we must be a terrible species at taking hints because, we must get 100 hints before that great big boot kicks us right there, but it's that great big shake that gets us.
Mhm.
And, uh, and, and Lucifer was also a panacea for me because Tribute was quite an emotional, heavy book. And I didn't want to, and that was my first book. I didn't want to tread lightly with my first book. I noticed a lot of authors sort of come out with something sweet first and try to win their readers over. And I never wanted to play like that. I just wanted to get out there and
You want
tear
to
the
be in their
band-aid off.
face, and that's it.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not afraid of that. But it did put a cloud over me for a couple of months after writing the book. And if I'm honest, maybe a year, a couple of the characters haunted me. And so Lucifer was almost like the blues to that. It was a bit of a cure. I wanted to laugh and I wanted to read something and make me laugh out loud and giggle for a while. And I think because I had the bad happen first with my writing, it was quite easy to bring a real fresh light, easygoing attitude. But at the same time, I still wanted the same punch that my first book had. So I had to, using that style, try to um, create something that when you do put it down, you think about it afterwards. So
Mhm.
the reef and nature and his nature, I think, does that to a certain degree.
It's really does sound like you blended it perfectly. And it's the good and the bad blended because there is no such a thing as true evil or true good. There's good and evil in everyone and everything.
Yeah, and that was really fun to play with because all the dogmas of religion. If you've ever smoked a joint in your life, you're going to hell. If you've had
Mhm.
sex outside of marriage, you're going to hell. And poor old Lucifer, he's just snowed under because gluttony and vanity and all these things are a part of everyday first world society now.
Mhm.
Um, you know, 200 years ago, these things were something you'd repent for for a year. Now it's part of every day of our lives, and so in the book, we're all going to hell, and he's not interested in our personalities. To him, he's an accountant of sorts. So we're
Mhm.
just numbers, and he's sick of these numbers. And when he comes to Australia, he meets a person that smokes a joint, and he meets a person that has sex with the same sex or is a transgender, and he realizes that these people, other than the things they do to themselves, they're beautiful people. They don't hurt anybody. They have great hearts. They actually become his friends. So it makes him look at how uh, religion has to be evolved to
Mhm.
match our evolving standards because I think religion is losing popularity. Um, and I am not religious, but I'm very spiritual, and I think a lot of my friends are, and I think you are too, from
Mhm.
just talking to you on
I'm
and off the
very
camera here.
spiritual. I don't
Yeah,
go with organized religion, even though I have a degree in it. I actually go away from it because it's complete total. malarkey to me.
And it sort of almost matches, but it doesn't for people in our
Mhm,
situation. We want something that we can express that with, and I always thought at the end of the day that the big picture is we just want to be with the people we love, and
exactly.
even though my heaven doesn't have angels in it or
Mhm,
harps, it definitely has everyone I love there, and if you talk to most people who aren't into massive religions, they all have a little bit of spirituality, whether it be we're part of the universe or stardust or these
mhm,
sorts of things. And it can sound a little bit corny to talk out loud about, but when you read about it, it's actually quite interesting, I think. Especially if you can put a little bit of comedy in there, just to see the folly of some of religion's thoughts and traditions, and get a fresh perspective
perspective.
on it being okay to be spiritual, and
Mhm.
it's okay to not think there's a God, but still think I'm going to see my loved ones and the people I care about.
Right. It's
Um,
taking, okay, we have family members that maybe same sex orientated or they cross dress or whatever, and religion says, oh no, you can't do that. Well, we're in the 21st century. Yes, you can.
yeah, and to have the fear of no afterlife or
Mhm,
being restricted from some place or pushed away from some place just for things like that. And I do bring up more serious things in there like
mhm,
heroin use and drug addiction on a larger scale. And even to the same degree, I believe that with those people too, if they're not hurting anybody else, I don't really mind what they do to themselves. If I love them, of course, I'll try and intervene.
mhm,
Um, but I went to Amsterdam pre-COVID, and I really fell in love with how people have the freedom of choice there and most people aren't fools. I smoke weed, and I went there, and I was surprised how many people don't smoke weed because it's legal,
mhm.
and kids' parents do it, and they're bored with it because their parents did it, and they don't want to do what their parents did.
Mhm.
And in my country, I can tell you for a fact that half of us at least put a joint in our mouths because it was illegal, because
Yeah,
it
that's
was,
exactly it. It's the
yeah,
fact that it's against the pro, it's illegal. You're not allowed to do it. So I'm going to rebel and do it anyways. Once you make it
yeah.
legal, people don't want to do it no more.
I don't want to do it. And I was really astounded because I figured this country, everyone can do it. Everyone's going to be, enjoying this thing. And well, they had other better things to enjoy, and
Mhm,
other things gave them that rush to do that were legal, that they
mhm,
don't have to get that rush from something illegal. And so I put a lot of my friends who aren't here now in that situation. If we had that freedom of choice, would we have been so interested in that? Would we have thought that was so cool because it's against the rules or what have you? And um, I found Amsterdam was full of the most loving people, the most broad-minded people, and I love my country, and I'm not a huge patriot or anything like that, but I love my country, and I was actually a bit embarrassed of my country over there because I realised we're very small-minded here. We're still 40 years behind the curve, and we're stuck in these shallow thoughts where people's gender is guaranteed known in your mind by posture. The way someone stands, he's a poof. If you smoke a cigarette wrong, he's a poof.
mhm,
This is how blatantly dry my country is, and it's, if you know the person, it's done in a fun gesture. Australians have a funny way of running you down with the sweetest tongue, and and you don't realise you've really been run down until you walk away and you think, what was I just called? um,
yeah, you
but
have your own language
that
there for
sort of
sure.
That's right. It's a different strain of English, and I'm trying to teach all you Americans how to speak English properly, but it's going to be a long battle, I think. but
Yes,
um,
yes, we
but
need to
that
learn
too,
English again. I don't know what we speak here, but it's not English.
it's a different strain altogether. But those little concepts were really fun for me to latch onto, and I actually wasn't going to publish Loose because it was just for me, just to make me laugh and make me laugh out loud.
Mhm,
And and a couple of people that read it were just like, that is a really sweet, fast moving. light-hearted, fun book, and I kind of thought that myself, but I didn't think anyone would be interested in reading that sort of
Mhm.
book, and it's become the little engine that could. I sort of put it out there, just you know,
Just to see
obviously
what it'll
people look.
do, and it's actually doing really well.
It's doing really, really well, and people respond really beautifully to it, and a lot of people like yourself who have had religious backgrounds seem to love it the most.
Mhm.
I don't know many people with religious backgrounds, but they seem to really like the new spin I've put on it, and the general annual heavenly meeting, because what business today doesn't have 20 meetings a week now that just drive you crazy, and
Mhm.
the meetings are for the color of the carpet and the fans, and you know some of the meetings that I've attended in my life with department heads were absolute wastes of time that I'll never ever ever get back. And so putting that meeting situation in heaven was really quite fun. All the
It's
department heads
okay from a
together.
CEO point of view. How many meetings have I sit through and go, do I really need to be here today?
That's right. You almost like become the kid at school where you're writing notes and throwing it to the cool person in the class, so you got some fun happening while you're in there. But, every one of us can relate to that. We've all, if we haven't been in a CEO position where we're
Mhm.
sitting with department heads, we've been sitting in an office with all the bosses there. Everyone sort of had to sit in those rooms and pretend to be interested and feign loyalty. And I thought doing that with heavenly characters was really quite fun.
It is perfect because okay, we're looking at it as a business now. You're not looking at a
Yeah,
religion, you're looking at a business. So once you look
yeah,
at it as a business, you take away all the religion stuff and you have all this real world stuff that we all can relate to. And we
that's
go,
right.
do we have to be here? How many safety meetings have I been in as an entry level to up? Do I need to really know how to mop a floor? Don't, isn't that
Yeah,
common
that's right.
sense?
That's right. It blows your mind away, and so to see that with the family connection as well is quite fun, because once you take or actually do what you said and put the business model in there, then suddenly Lucifer trying to take over heaven was the son trying to take over dad's business and just improve it a little bit, and dad's been doing this so long, we need to upgrade, and we need to, when dad's dead, we're going to change the business, but dad never dies. That old bugger just keeps hanging around, and so then you go, I see, this works, this connects, and it was funny how it meshed together for me, because with the business idea just it kept growing, and
Mhm.
as a writer yourself, once those ideas get roots and branch out, they really start writing themselves then.
They really do. And then you go back after you have 800 pages or whatever. How did I write 800 pages?
That's right. Sometimes you wake up and you think, who wrote this? Um, it's good when it's a good writing too, because sometimes I wake up and it's really bad writing, and I go, oh my God, who wrote this? It's a whole different sort of concept. But, I think too, giving Lucifer a dog was very, very easy to write for me. Once I realized he had to have a pet, I knew the pet wasn't going to be the pet that everyone imagined in their head. So giving him a pet that no one would ever think possible was really fun. And and of course, him being able to take the pet back with him in the end, I thought that was a sweet little touch as well. And are you okay? You got some
Oh, I have an
allergies?
eyelash or something. I'm fine. It's
Oh,
I started laughing. So I started crying automatically. And what happens when you cry? You have eyelashes go in your eye
yeah.
because you're
I
laughing.
thought I thought
And I
maybe you
have
had
these
a
super long natural eyelashes.
ah.
So if I
You and
don't
I have
curl
that
them,
in common.
they just go right
I
in my eye.
Yeah, and when they fall out, they fall right into your eye, and they're stuck
Mhm.
there all day long.
Yeah,
And I
it's
thought,
it's
sorry, I
okay
thought,
because I'm
I,
laughing and it's a good laugh. It's just now I'm crying. But it's okay.
um,
But
I
this
actually
is a
thought,
wonderful, wonderful story. It's fun just to talk about. So it's going to be a fun read.
yeah, and well, my test is I don't go near my books for a year or so after I
Mhm.
write them, and then I come back to them and see if I still like them. and I've read Lucifer maybe 3 or 4 times since I've written it, and I really love it. I still love it. It's one I'm really proud of because it's non-offensive. I'm very proud of my first book, but it's it's purposely offensive and it's
Yeah.
purposely taking on large topics. And this one I liked because I wasn't really even the most stoic of Christians will appreciate what I've done there. It's not tearing them to pieces
No,
or
it's not about religion at all, really. It's like I said, it's a
yeah,
family business. When you look at
that's
the
right.
family business, you just so happen to pull off religious figures and turn it
That's right.
into a business. You take the religion completely out. Now you can laugh about it.
Yeah, that's right. That's so good. That's a great way to describe it. And someone once described it like Pineapple Express across the Ten Commandments. And I thought that was quite a good. I thought that was quite a good compliment as well. Um, and you know what worked for me is this part of Australia is very, very renowned. If you came here alone and you were sitting in a bar alone, in the cities in Australia, people will leave you there alone all night long. And if you want to talk to locals and meet locals, it can be quite intimidating in cities in Australia. Everyone's like every city in the world. They've got their own circles and they're busy.
Mhm.
Um, if you were to turn up in this town or the Cairns or the towns that I write about there, and you were sitting in a bar alone, you would have 4 or 5 people come over in the first half an hour. Hi, how you going? G'day. What are you doing here? How's things? And I figured if the devil was going to turn up somewhere and make mates and make a friend, it'd be here because you just can't be left alone to be sad. If you're sitting in a bar crying in your beer, we don't see that very much around here because you got 3 people coming up, putting their arm around you, going, "You're all right. Let's, what's happening?"
Right. You want
And
another beer? Can I get you something?
yeah,
It's
yeah, that's right. And
camaraderie.
when I go to cities in Australia, I find them the most un-Australian places. That they have become multinational. Every city in the world that I've been to now, Amsterdam, Singapore, they could be the same city anywhere. They all have the same things. There's something beautiful, there's something different. But outside of that, all cities pretty much run to the same heartbeat. And I lived in one for 4 years, and I've never been so lonely in my life. And I tried to put that in the book as well because we Lucifer noticed that we lived in this age of population, this huge population, but we're also living in this galling age of loneliness.
Mhm.
And, people are so lonely when the numbers defy loneliness. We shouldn't be lonely with the amount of
No,
population we
we
have.
should not be lonely in the digital age. I mean,
No.
seriously, you can reach out and touch anyone with the digital age anymore.
Yeah, and look at us. We're on other sides of the planet, and we
Mhm.
may have had a lag in the first 5 minutes of talking or so, but now that lag's gone, and we're talking like we're face to face in real life. Um, so I think that loneliness has probably stemmed from the digital world a little bit.
Mhm.
I noticed personally when I locked myself away for 10 years to write the book and was only writing to people on computers, my conversational skills dropped off
Mhm.
in that time. The computer sapped away some of my ability to relate to other human beings, and even though it was just a decade, these poor people that are born into the digital world and the millennials that have always had their phones with them, I wonder how much of that has been stolen from them, from
I think has contributed to a lot of distance between people.
yeah,
Now, my daughter, she doesn't know how to use a phone, but she knows how to use certain apps like Discord and communicate very well using written language.
right. But face to face stuff or actually speaking
Mhm.
is reserved for special
People,
occasions
yeah,
or
special occasions or people she's really close to. Me, I've actually gotten to the point where I missed the communication. So instead of typing to everyone, hey, you want to jump on
yeah.
a call real quick?
Yeah. You know what this reminds me of, Melissa, is um, mine and your generation when we were kids, there was in Australia one phone in the house.
Mhm.
And generally it was in the living room and you had to talk with whoever was in the house around you. So you really didn't have privacy.
we
And
had we had had the same thing. We had a
yeah,
104 foot cord, to connect the base to the, the headset part, and walk around with this 100-foot cord. And if it got a kink, then you couldn't hear anything.
So you can walk to the next state practically to get some privacy. Yeah, well, and you know what happened was everyone was fairly cryptic on the phone in those days.
Mhm,
Now everyone's very open on the phones, and
mhm.
it's the opposite now. Everyone's very open on the phones, but in real life they're a little bit more hesitant. And of course, we all know about these keyboard warriors who are super brave and super um, amazing on the computer, and when I meet people like that in real life, they never call me the things that they say to people on the
Mm,
computers.
yeah.
That sense of one-on-one respect and fear, because I think in Australia everyone is sort of brought up to respect the person that they meet and fear them a little bit as well. You don't want to get on their bad side. Don't irritate them. Don't make them mad. Um, but now computers seem to take all that away, and
Oh
people
yeah,
are
there's
so.
no fear anymore. It's I'm going to say anything I want to say, and it doesn't matter if it hurts your feelings because it's only on the computer.
That's right.
But
And in reality, conversations don't go that way.
mhm,
And arguments in particular don't go that way. And I was raised to believe that, and it stuck with me a long time. A gentleman said to me once, if you have to raise your voice, the argument's lost.
mhm.
You're not arguing anymore.
No, you're
And,
not.
and
I was raised the same way. My grandfather used to say it all the time. If you're raising your voice, you already lost your argument.
yeah, and very simple things to hear, but when you're a young person, they're very important to hear, I think, those
Mhm.
things. And now with computers, who's saying that? And you know, when I was rude as a young teenager, someone would slap me in the face or punch me in the mouth, and where's that limit now is what I really worry about, and as we spoke in our last interview, I get a little bit of trouble from people, but when I meet them at book signings and things like that, no one says the things they say to me on computers.
Mhm.
It's a whole different situation, and I get kind of scared because I'm new to computers. I kind of think, oh, that's what people are like now, and they're going to be that angry, voicing, bully kind of person, and to be honest, in reality, with my writing, I've never met that person face to face. I meet them on the computer all the time. But
Exactly. How many times as authors do we get the negative whatever backlash, but we
yeah,
get to a author event, book signing, book fair, whatever it is, we never hear that negative ever.
no, and they know we're there. They know
Mhm,
all the information as all our other readers do. So that gave me a certain amount of they're bluffing me
mhm.
as well, because I used to take it quite personally. I never really got emails before. I'm a farmer. I never dealt with people, strangers, if you like. And at first, I took it really personally. It was breaking my heart that these people could say such awful things, and I kind of made the mistake of trying to be friendly and fix things up. And that was a mistake on my behalf, but it's a
You
learning
can't
curve.
fix a bully. You really can't.
No, and 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 the more you do, the more justified I think they get. I just suck the oxygen out of those situations now, and have learnt better. But at first, yeah, you're dead right. You can't change a bully's mind. They're stuck on that one thought, and there's no derailing it. So
Mm-mm.
the thing I love about Lucifer is I get such beautiful responses, and I get one that is a little bit of a worry. He writes me an email once a week, and he just calls me Satan, and I think he believes that I'm writing that's autobiographical. It's autobiographical. Sorry, I said that wrong. But yeah, so at first I didn't know if he was serious, and I still don't know if he's joking or. But he'll say things like, "How many souls have you seen today that you're going to destroy?" And "Hello, Satan. Hope you're enjoying the tropical fruit." And "Hello, Satan." And I'm like, okay, what do I do with that?
Oh,
Um,
I've been called everything under the sun. I write fantasy or I write business. One of the two. That's what I write. Or I write travel.
fantasy.
But
What was the other one? Fantasy and
fantasy, travel, and business.
business. Oh, excellent. Yeah,
Yes.
because I've
So I'm
noticed a lot
in.
of your interviews with business people.
So it's everything in between. And when I'm reading about my dragons or my witches and whatever, it's like, what are you, a Satan worshiper? What? I'm like,
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
it's
And no
a
matter
witch.
what business you run, no matter what business you run, there's people that hate that business, right? I've had a few businesses in my life, and I learned quickly that you just can't please everybody. And you know, anything to do with food or service, you always get those bad people. So I was kind of glad I had that as a background before I started writing, because
Mhm,
I'd hate to be a new young writer and be focused on what Facebook people say, and because if you're 20 something now, Facebook and all these platforms are your identity to a certain degree. And I wonder how young shy writers are going with that, you know,
mhm.
when they read all that.
Right.
uh,
I was on Facebook earlier today, and there's an author. She's wrote her first or second book, and she gets all this negative chatter on Facebook. So she's like, I'm done. I'm not writing another book. I'm like, look.
how sad is that? Because you and I know, and anyone that's written a book, everyone wants to write a book, but how few of us do it.
Mhm,
And I don't know if you get sick of hearing this, but when people realize I write a book, and I should tell you, when people in this little town found out that I finished a book, they just assumed it was a coloring in book. Um, they had no idea I could write actual words, you know.
mhm.
And um, when you're in that early phase and you've taken those steps to do what many can't. And one thing that irritates me today is people go, "Oh, I always wanted to write a book, and I'm going to write a book," and I tell them, "Well, I hear it so many times, you know, and
Mhm.
the ones that say that never do it. You and I and people that have written a book, we don't go around talking about it. We actually just do it." And
Exactly. It's like my newest one's getting ready. It should have been out this Tuesday in Walmart, and it's
congrats.
coming out in hardcover in Walmart on the 7th.
Oh, congratulations!
Thank you. That's
Oh,
book like 17 or something for me. But at the same time, I never said I was writing 17 books. I just said, oh, this is book 17.
yeah, yeah, this is how it goes. And so when people come up to me and say that sort of stuff, I find that I'll probably never ever read their work. So for people to harass people that have taken that step and taken that time, and you and I are talking together, so you and I can say perfectly honestly, we know the heartache, we know the long nights, we know the thoughtless nights, we know the friends we lose, the social contact we lose, the strange looks we get, the people that try to tell us that there's no money in writing and no money in these things. Um, you know, to take that first step and put your heart and soul out there like that, and then have people wipe their feet on it,
Mhm.
breaks my heart. Because I think in any industry, everyone starts off as a beginner. No one picks up a drum
You
kit
do
and
not
becomes a.
start out your career, regardless of what it is, as a CEO. You
No,
have to
that's
start
right.
somewhere.
That's right. And so few first books make people famous. You know,
Mhm.
it's the third, the fifth, the 17th, the 10th. It's never the one that you think is going to make you famous either. So discouragement like that, and that breaks my heart. And so the one thing I don't tolerate now in my life is people who don't tolerate. You know,
Mhm.
I think there's just so many cold people in the world that if I get that sense from them straight away, I get rid of them. It's not good for my art. I don't want my art to be associated with people like that. If people don't get it, then I'm not really aiming for them if they don't get it. You know, the people that
Mhm.
do understand my work, they're the ones that I was trying to punch through to, and where I get my joy from.
Exactly. It's who you have to find your circle, right? You don't
Yeah.
want your circle to be negative. You cut those negatives out and you find your circle a positive.
And it's too easy to, I think, find the negatives. You know,
Mhm.
I'm not sure about yourself, but I once said to someone, you know, I'm a little bit insecure. I'm a bit of a hermit. I'm not really fond of crowds. And he said, "Oh, that's perfect writer." And I was like, "Oh, oh, it kind of is." And you know, when you get little hints like that, it's so much better than being told to, you know, throw your pen away and all this
Mhm.
sorts of stuff.
It's
And
like
and
I am a hermit. I like being in my house. I don't like being out around people. I love the people like this, like we're doing, but don't
Yeah.
take me to like a amusement park and expect me to be, oh, hey, hi.
Right. You have your work self and your
Mhm,
work front, and then your home front, and that's a tough thing to juggle in life for a lot of people too. I worked in health clubs most of my life, and leaving work at work and your home personality at home is a very hard thing to juggle in hospitality type industries and things
mhm,
like that. And I think a lot of writers are by nature very sensitive, and have to be. I don't think I'm purposely sensitive, but sorry, I don't think I'm sensitive by accident. I purposely try to feel things more. I purposely try to look a little deeper. I don't think I have writer's eyes, but I try to look through writer's eyes all the time. And so when these people who write their first books and get told terrible things, I think that people don't understand the the amount of mental fortitude they've had to go through to get to those ideas and to get those things written down. And it's so easy to criticize too, and I think if I was a young writer, I would just do what I do now and not really pay much attention to that stuff. Just try and
your
focus
first
on the
book is
stuff.
always the hardest because you have to get over the everyone hates me, you know.
Hmm.
Once you get
That's
rid
right.
of the everyone hates me, you don't care anymore and you can actually just write.
Yeah, and isn't that a freedom in itself?
Hmm.
Once you sort of get to that point where I don't care,
Hmm.
um, and that doesn't mean that you don't care about the words you're writing. I don't care what people think, um, but I'm very, very fussy with what I put out and
Hmm.
what I. So even if people hate my writing, I usually would like to think, well, hopefully they like the words written and the style that I write and the way I write. They might not write what I write about, but um,
If they
and
can
that's the thing.
find one positive in your writing, then it's a good day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I really try not to focus on the negative. I think it helps sometimes when good things happen and you get a little bit too much of a roll going and your head gets a little bit big. It's nice to be brought back down to earth with a couple of people that aren't big fans. Um, because once again, it's a dangerous world of the positive as well. People can be saying the positive things all the time and you can almost believe it all.
Hmm.
And
Your
particularly when it's
head swells up and you just live with your head in the cloud and you have to be
yeah.
popped every once in a while.
Yeah, that's right. And I think too, because we read typing in our own voices, it's a self affirmation that can be a little dangerous.
Hmm.
When we're reading a really good review, we're using our own inner dialogue, and it's not their voice we're hearing or some stranger's voice. It's our own dialogue, and that's
Hmm.
very soothing, isn't it? It
It is those wonderful reviews that we read and we put our own spin on the words. Yeah, it's wonderful.
I love it. And, I think some people that write reviews are some of the most amazing writers I've ever seen in my life.
Hmm.
I get some really well structured reviews, and I think, oh, I wish I could write that well. Their book reviews at school must have been 5 star. Um, but I love words, and the thing is, if I read positive words, I can love them even more. So I try to read them every now and then when I'm feeling a little bit insecure about my writing, and just sort of remind myself, yeah, I'm a writer. Because, the greatest writers I've ever met have never thought they were writers. And um, I
Well,
kind of know that
look at
feeling.
Stephen King. We all know how big Stephen King is. If you
Yeah.
go back to the 1980s with his book Carrie, and we all know Carrie from the movies,
Yeah.
he thought it was garbage and he threw it away.
It's just crazy, and even the Harry Potter series and stuff
Mhm.
like that. I don't, because I'm so far away from the world. I don't know how true it is, but I believe a script reader's daughter is responsible for that book becoming famous, or an editor's daughter, because um, she got so desperate sending people manuscripts that she thought, I'll send some to sports people and all sorts of places outside her genre. And this bloke went home for 2 weeks holiday, and I hope this is true, otherwise I'm wasting your time. But apparently the manuscript was sitting on the table amongst all this other stuff, and his 9-year-old, 10-year-old daughter picked this thing up and said, "Oh, you got to read this Harry Potter book." And I kind of think if it wasn't for this 9 or 10-year-old girl going, "Dad, check this out,"
Mhm.
the whole world would be bereft of her.
Yeah.
You know, that,
The best books come by the least expectant person.
yeah, I think that too. And again, because we're talking to one another, it's hard to make it sound like I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think I did really well in Australia with that. I wasn't the next expected author. I don't talk like the authors that are here. I don't especially write like them or look like them. And Australia has been, we've had a king here for 10 or 15 years who's been unchallenged, and he's a wonderful writer. Um, but there's been no other stream or anyone that can compete with the way he writes, and he's a very intellectual scholared man, and I'm not. So I write very differently to him, but still with a similar effect. And I'm getting a great response from Australians because there's a new voice out there all of a sudden, and not one that was just part of the chain that has been around for the last decade or so. And um, being the new voice can sort of have its benefits, I think.
It can. It really can. But we are almost out of time. So where can our
Oh,
listeners and our viewers find you?
well, I'm on Amazon and all the platforms, and this is my paperback here. If you want a paperback, they're there. Also, Lucifer has been done in an audiobook um, by a person from this particular area who knows the accent, knows the language, so it's very, very authentic, and that just makes it a little bit funnier, I think, as well when you get the real
That would be
dialogue.
that would be hilarious for someone not from that area to hear
That's
it
right,
in your language. And I say your
and
language because there's words there that are not said in any other country around the world.
that's right. And because he's from the area, I actually had people from Sydney test read it for me, but they'd say the words all wrong, because
Mhm.
and without the cadence and the proper technique, the words can sound a little bit not as lustrous. So with this guy, because even around here, his voice is very distinctive, and we have a very distinctive accent up
Mhm.
here at any time. But the the his accent just captures it beautifully, and it's an adult's book, so there's a little bit of swearing in there, and he swears beautifully. It's so funny the way, it's so beautiful the way he swears. But we also have Buzzsprout podcasts as well,
Mhm.
and Goodreads has my work, and there's a website on my Facebook page and things like that as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Melissa. It was so good to see you again, and take care.
Always. And for all of our viewers and our listeners, happy reading.